The moon shone brightly, framing the diplomatic station like a silver beacon on its surface. Inside the station's grand hall, Captain Ethan Grayson and General Mitchell discussed a risky mission. "You're volunteering for the Vora connection ritual," the general said, his voice heavy. "The same ritual that killed 3 others." "Yes, sir," Ethan replied calmly, though his heart raced. "Vora is too important for us to lose as an ally." The general eyed him sharply. "And you think you're up to this?" Ethan nodded. "My record proves it, sir. I've succeeded in 12 first contact missions, and I understand alien psychology. Plus, I have no family, no attachments. I'm expendable." "Expendable isn't good enough," the general countered. "We need success." He gestured to a hologram of a towering Vora warrior, twice the size of a human and telepathic. "That's why I'm the right choice," Ethan said. "We need allies, not just neighbors." Before the conversation could continue, the docking bay doors opened, and Ariel, the Vora representative, entered. At 8 feet tall, with glowing blue skin and ceremonial armor, she was both intimidating and majestic. Ethan stepped forward, addressing her in her language. "Welcome to the Lunar Diplomatic Station. I'm Captain Ethan Grayson, your connection candidate." Ariel studied him, a faint smile on her lips. "You're smaller than I expected." "Good things come in small packages," Ethan replied with a smile. Ariel raised an eyebrow. "You speak well for a human." "I've practiced," he said. As the evening continued, Ariel observed Ethan closely, her gaze curious rather than hostile. Later, during dinner, she asked him directly, "Why did you volunteer for this?" "No one else would," Ethan admitted. "And you're not afraid?" "Fear sharpens focus, but it doesn't paralyze me," he answered. Ariel chuckled. "You're either brave or foolish, Captain Grayson." "Call me Ethan," he said. "If we're going to connect, we should start with names." Before she could respond, alarms blared through the station. "Security breach in Sector 7. Unknown hostile detected. All personnel to safe zones." Ethan sprang into action. "Sector 7 is near the energy core," he said. "You know this station well," Ariel noted, her eyes narrowing. Standing beside him, her massive body tense and ready, Ariel watched as Ethan drew his weapon and laid out a plan. "Want to help me save a few thousand lives?" he asked. Her purple eyes glimmered with determination. "Lead the way, little warrior," she replied. The unlikely pair, a towering 9-foot Valoran and the much smaller Ethan, moved through the station. While emergency bulkheads blocked many paths, Ethan guided them through maintenance tunnels. "This way," he said, pointing to a tight passage. "It's faster." Ariel hesitated. "You want me to crawl?" "Unless you'd rather let the terrorists win," Ethan said with a grin. She laughed. "Fine, lead on." Emerging from the tunnel, they spotted 3 terrorists cutting into the energy core. Ethan motioned for Ariel to hold, but she charged, taking them by surprise. Ethan backed her up with precise shots, disabling their weapons. Ariel's strength sent one flying into a wall, and her quick reflexes saved Ethan when another attacker appeared. Together, they subdued the terrorists. Catching their breath, Ariel said, "Your combat skills are adequate." Ethan smirked. "Not bad yourself, though subtlety might not be your strong suit." "Subtlety is overrated," she replied, towering over him. "You knew I'd act this way. Why plan for it?" "Because teamwork means working with differences, not against them," Ethan said. She studied him for a moment before touching his injured lip gently. "Maybe you're not as unqualified as I thought, Ethan Grayson." Later, at a diplomatic event, Ariel approached him. "I've decided we'll begin connection trials tomorrow. Don't be late." Ethan smiled as she walked away. Sometimes even a small step forward was enough. Though the general's tone was serious, Ethan felt the real challenges were just beginning. "Remember your mission, Captain. The future of human-Vora relations depends on this." Ethan nodded, focused on the trials ahead and the tough warrior he would face. He was eager to start. On the lunar station, as artificial dawn shone through the windows of the training hall, he arrived early and found Ariel already there, moving through combat stances with surprising agility for her size. "You're early," she said without stopping. "Couldn't sleep," Ethan replied, shrugging off his jacket and ready to start. After finishing her sequence, Ariel turned to him. "The connection ritual needs more than physical preparation," she reminded him. "I know, it needs mental synchronization, emotional resonance." He paused, searching for the right word. "Spiritual alignment." "You've studied well," she said, walking toward him. Suddenly, Ariel touched his mind. A shock of static electricity ran through him, and Ethan staggered from the intensity. Your mental barriers are strong, but too rigid, she said. They need to be fluid like water. It would be easier if you'd warned me first, Ethan gasped, trying to steady himself. Ariel smiled faintly. An enemy doesn't warn before attacking, she said. That's why I start each morning with conditioning, mixing human military drills with valor and warrior skills. Though smaller, Ethan kept up, showing agility and balance. Not bad, Ariel commented as he completed a difficult move that resembled a finishing strike. Is that a compliment or a critique? He asked. An observation, she replied. You hide much beneath the surface. In the afternoon, training switched to mental exercises, which Ethan found more difficult. He had been trained to defend his mind, but now he had to learn to open it. Relax, Ariel instructed, placing her hands near his temples. Your thoughts are like clenched fists. Open them. Easier said than done, Ethan muttered, trying not to focus on how close she was. In my line of work, mental barriers keep me alive. In this mission, they'll kill you, she said softly. Trust has to start somewhere. Slowly, Ethan began to sense Ariel's presence in his mind, like distant thunder. Ariel also began to understand human boundaries, which she found amusing. Your species is obsessed with invisible boundaries, she said during a break, yet you easily enter each other's minds for small talk. Ethan grinned. Why do humans travel across the galaxy? Ariel gave him a look. To talk to everyone? Ethan laughed. It takes practice to get it right, she smirked. I'm not smiling. Maybe just a little, he teased. Their conversation was interrupted by Ambassador Chen, who appeared with a concerned look. Captain Grayson, he whispered. Ethan and Ariel exchanged a glance before following Chen to the corner. There's growing opposition to this project, Chen whispered. Both humans and Vora fear the ritual might give the Vora too much influence over humanity, or the other way around. Ethan nodded. Maybe the recent security brief was just a sign. Be careful, Captain. Chen warned before leaving. Ethan turned back to Ariel, who was now focused. You heard? During a relaxation exercise, Ethan noticed a shift in his mental connection with Ariel. Instead of just an exchange, he saw memories of her training as a warrior and the pressure she felt as her people's representative. Suddenly, the connection was cut and Ariel pulled back, cautious. Ethan asked if she saw anything. She admitted she saw his courage and loneliness. Ariel stepped closer, commenting on his fragility but strength. Before they could talk more, an alarm went off and armed figures appeared. The two quickly coordinated, working together to take down the attackers. When security arrived, they found 6 unconscious assassins, while Ethan and Ariel stood, breathing heavily. Later, security found the assassins were hired by factions opposing the connection ritual. In training, Ariel and Ethan faced each other on the mat. Ariel said people feared what they might become together. Their mental connection flared again, and they shared deeper feelings. Ethan asked if this was what Ariel wanted, and she said yes, pulling him closer. As their training intensified, their bond grew stronger, allowing them to communicate not just through thoughts, but emotions. In a challenging simulation, they moved as one, perfectly balanced. They understood each other deeply. Ethan felt the weight of Ariel's responsibilities, and Ariel saw Ethan's loneliness and desire to bridge species gaps. Afterward, Ariel mentioned that the ritual might change them forever. Ethan joked, asking if she was warning him or herself. She gently touched his face, and they shared a quiet moment. Skin, perhaps both, she said. What we start here might be impossible to undo. Good, Ethan replied firmly, because I don't want to undo it. Her purple eyes met his brown ones, and an electric sensation passed between them. The ritual ahead felt inevitable, but in that moment, they both knew there was no turning back. Tomorrow, Ariel said, we begin the final preparations. Ethan nodded, feeling the weight of their shared future. Should I bring flowers? Ariel laughed softly. You're a strange warrior, but you're still here. Yes, she said, her voice full of emotion. We're here. As they parted for the night, they both knew that no matter how difficult the challenges ahead would be, they would face them together. Political divides and dangers seemed small compared to their bond. The fate of their species' relationship might hang in the balance, but for them, it was more personal. They had found a connection built on understanding and growing affection, not just diplomacy. Ethan felt tonight was different. Ariel's laughter and voice echoed in his mind, and the weight of her words, "We're here," wrapped around him. As he stood by the window, looking at Earth on the horizon, Ethan couldn't sleep. The future felt uncertain, and everything seemed delicate. It wasn't just politics on his mind. Something deeper had shifted within him. Ariel's presence, her intellect, and the way she affected him haunted him even when she wasn't there. Closing his eyes, he tried to calm his thoughts. What lay ahead was more than just a battle. It was about survival, and their relationship had become something real, not just diplomatic. It was something they couldn't walk away from without leaving pieces of themselves behind. Suddenly, a knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Ariel's voice, low and urgent, filled the room. "They've acted," she said. "The attack is tonight. We need to leave now." Ethan felt his heart race, not from fear, but from the urgency. He grabbed his jacket, knowing this was the moment they'd been waiting for. As he approached, she placed a hand on his shoulder, a quiet strength. "We won't get far if we stay here," she said. "We're being hunted." "Do we have a plan?" Ethan asked, adrenaline kicking in. "No," she replied. "Both sides, human and Vora, see us as a threat. They won't stop until the ritual is destroyed." Ethan nodded. "Then we have to finish it before they get here." Ariel's eyes softened, a gentleness in her voice. "We will finish it." They moved swiftly through the dimly lit hallways, alert to every sound, every movement. Ariel was calm, moving with the grace of a warrior. As they went deeper into the station, alarms blared and red lights flickered. "We're running out of time," Ethan muttered, glancing at Ariel. She nodded, more resolute than ever. "The maintenance tunnel is too obvious," he said, trying to find a quicker way to complete their mission. Ethan focused, wondering who was after them. "It's not just mercenaries," he said. Ariel nodded in agreement, her voice angry. "Some of the attackers are Vora warriors from my own group. They've joined those who fear the connection." Ethan clenched his jaw. "They're afraid of what we could do together." Before Ariel could respond, a new assault team appeared at the opposite end of the cargo bay, using magnetic boots to stay balanced. Ethan cursed and pulled Ariel behind a floating container. "We need to get to the emergency airlock," he said. "If we can reach the outside, we can escape." Suddenly, an explosion shook the station, sending containers floating around them. Ariel grabbed Ethan, pulling him into her arms as a large piece of debris flew past. "You saved me again," Ethan said, his heart racing. "We protect what matters to us," she answered quietly but intensely. Ethan realized her words were more than just loyalty. They held something deeper, but there was no time to think about it. They kept moving, using debris as cover. Their enemies attacked relentlessly, getting bolder as they moved through zero gravity. Another explosion caused the emergency lights to flicker, and the system warned that life support was failing in several sectors. "They're trapping us," Ethan realized. "They're cutting off parts of the station to corner us." "Then we'll find another way out," Ariel said firmly. They moved toward the emergency airlock, but another blast made the door slam shut. Ethan cursed and grabbed a support bar to steady himself. "We have no options left." Ariel looked around, her purple eyes narrowing. "There's only one choice left," she said, gently touching his face. "The connection ritual we completed here. Now, there's no time to wait. It's our only chance." Ethan swallowed hard. The connection ritual wasn't just a formality. It was deep, binding them in a way neither fully understood. He searched her eyes for hesitation, but Ariel's gaze was steady and unwavering. "I'm ready," he said softly, his voice calm despite the emotions inside. Ariel smiled faintly, her eyes softening. "Then let's begin." They found a small maintenance room and sealed the door behind them, the space growing tighter under the red emergency lights. But none of that mattered anymore. They sat facing each other in the dim light, her silver skin glowing faintly, her purple eyes bright as she reached out to touch him. "Your mind to my mind," she began in a soft murmur. "Your heart to my heart." Their fingers intertwined, the difference in size stark, but their connection unbreakable. Ethan felt the warmth of her skin, the powerful energy flowing beneath it. "Your strength to my strength," he whispered. "Your soul to my soul." The bond between them deepened, and Ethan felt a rush of emotions. Fear, longing. But they weren't just his, they were hers too. He glimpsed memories of her childhood on her homeworld, the pressure of tradition, and how she had gone from disliking him to admiring his quiet strength. In turn, she saw his loneliness, his desire to bridge the gap between humans and the Vora, and his attraction to her despite their differences. As their minds merged, their thoughts and emotions became one. The air in the room grew thin, but they didn't notice, lost in each other and the connection they shared. Ariel, Ethan whispered, awestruck. I never thought this was possible. Neither did I, she replied softly, amazed by the bond between them. As the connection reached its peak, something shifted. Ethan felt a powerful energy flow through him, changing him at the most basic level. He gasped, his body trembling as the transformation took hold. Ariel's eyes widened, feeling the same shift as the energy reshaped her too. She still couldn't fully understand it, but as their bodies transformed, their bond grew stronger than ever. They were no longer two separate beings. They had become one. When the door to the room started to give way, the sound of cutting tools echoed through the cramped space, but neither of them paid any attention. They had moved beyond the boundaries of the physical world, their minds and souls now completely intertwined. When the door finally burst open, the attackers paused, expecting to find two weakened, cornered beings. Instead, they saw Ethan and Ariel standing side by side, glowing with the energy of their deep connection. Both of their eyes shone with the same vivid purple, unwavering as they faced their enemies. Ariel's voice, filled with power and joy, cut through the silence. The connection is complete. Ethan's deep, commanding voice echoed, and what is united cannot be broken. The invaders hesitated, weapons raised, but their courage faltered as they looked at the two figures before them. They were no longer just a soldier and a Vora warrior, but something new, a blend of both worlds. The strength of their bond was unbreakable, and the warriors began to retreat, fear and confusion spreading through their ranks. Ethan and Ariel remained united, knowing their bond had already won the battle. As the last attacker disappeared down the corridor, Ethan turned to look at Ariel, still feeling the reverberation of their connection. The depth of it was so profound that he couldn't tell where his own thoughts ended and hers began. He felt more whole than ever before. Ariel reached out her large hand, gently touching his face, not just as an expression of affection, but as a part of their shared existence. We are one now, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I can feel everything about you, every thought, every feeling, you in me and I in you. Ethan responded, his voice full of wonder and joy. He felt her strength flow through him, her memories and aspirations blending with his. Their bodies still pulsed with the energy of the ritual, transformed not just spiritually, but physically. Ethan's senses were heightened, his reflexes quicker, and his mind clearer than ever. Ariel too had a new grace, no longer just the imposing strength of a warrior, but now also infused with a gentle sensitivity. Ariel stepped closer, her towering form bending down so their eyes met. You truly are extraordinary, she whispered, her breath warm against his skin. All my life, I have searched for someone who could see me as more than just a warrior. You are the one I have been waiting for. Ethan's heart pounded, not with fear, but with desire. A desire that had been growing between them, held back by duty and circumstance. You are strong, Ariel, he said, moving his hand up to her face, feeling the warmth of her skin under his fingers, her heartbeat in sync with his. Ariel's strength didn't intimidate him. Instead, it had drawn him to her. Her eyes softened, her large hand covering his as she pulled him closer. You've changed me, little warrior, she murmured, a shy smile on her lips. I never thought I could feel this way for anyone. Ethan smiled, his heart swelling with affection. I'm not so little anymore, he teased, looking into her bright purple eyes. No, you're not, she agreed, her voice full of warmth. You're more than I ever expected. Their foreheads touched, and in that moment, the rest of the world seemed to fade away. The alarms, the chaos outside, the political tensions. All that remained was this powerful connection binding them together until they were no longer separate beings. The energy between them intensified, a heat flaring up from the core of their bond. It wasn't just the ritual that had brought them here, but the growing feelings and long-suppressed desire. That connection had stripped away every barrier, leaving only raw emotion that both of them could feel with absolute clarity. Ariel's lips hovered close to Ethan's, her warm breath. Ethan felt Ariel's voice whispering softly in his mind. her words laced with a rare vulnerability. He closed the distance between them gently, their lips meeting in a kiss that was both tender and intense. It was a kiss full of everything they had shared and endured, every battle, every doubt, every unspoken word. Their bodies moved together, not just guided by desire, but by a deeper connection. Ariel's arms wrapped tightly around him, pulling him closer, and Ethan could feel her heartbeat match his own. Their kiss deepened, the bond between them growing stronger, as their thoughts and emotions blended into one. It was no longer just a physical act, it was the final expression of their union, a full demonstration of their trust and love. "You are a part of me now," Ariel whispered in his mind, her voice soft but resolute, "and I am a part of you." Ethan's hand moved to the back of her neck, his fingers threading through her hair. "I wouldn't have it any other way," he replied, his voice filled with certainty. Their bodies moved in perfect rhythm, responding to the shared sensations that flowed between them. Every touch, every breath was amplified by their connection, making each moment feel timeless. Ariel, once cold and distant, now had gentle hands, tracing the contours of his body with reverence and passion. Ethan could feel her emotions flooding through their bond, desire, need, and a love so profound it almost overwhelmed him. He let her feel the depth of his own feelings for her, admiration, reverence, and everything he had felt since the first moment they met. Their thoughts intertwined so deeply that words became unnecessary. This was more than physical contact. It was the merging of their souls, something far deeper than anything they had ever known. With each passing moment, their bond only grew stronger, their movements in perfect harmony, not just reflecting the ritual, but the intimacy they had built over time. Ariel was no longer cold and distant. She was warm and open, her body soft under his touch. Ethan, ever restrained and disciplined, surrendered to the moment, letting go of everything except the sensation of being with her. "You've changed me," Ariel said, her voice filled with wonder as she processed the transformation they had gone through. "We've changed each other," Ethan replied, his voice steady and firm as their fingers intertwined once more. Their connection reached its peak. The energy between them crackled like electricity, as if the universe had conspired to bring them to this moment where only they existed. Their bond was unbreakable. When the final wave of connection surged, it felt as though time had stopped. Ethan's mind expanded, merging with Ariel's consciousness in a way words couldn't describe. He could feel her memories, thoughts, and desires, and she, in turn, felt his loneliness and yearning to be seen and loved. As their bodies found peace and their breathing steadied, Ethan looked into her eyes, his heart overflowing with love. "We're different now," he whispered. Ariel nodded, cradling his face in her hands. "Yes, we are truly one." Their gaze softened, but the bond between them remained stronger than ever. Though they had completed the ritual, the transformation was far from over. They were no longer just a human and a Vora. They had become something new, an inseparable fusion. "It's time to go back," Ariel said gently. They stood, their bodies still filled with the energy of their connection, knowing that the world outside awaited them. But they were no longer the same individuals who had entered the room. They were stronger now, united. In the days that followed, Ethan and Ariel became a living example of what could happen between two species. Their eternal bond inspired the relationship between humankind and the Vora. "Do you regret it?" Ethan asked as they watched Earth rise over the lunar horizon, their minds still intertwined. "Regret finding someone irreplaceable?" Ariel replied, warmth and humor in her voice. "Never." "I'm not so small anymore," Ethan said with a smile, still having to look up to meet her gaze. "You were never small where it mattered," Ariel answered, pulling him close. "Your heart, your courage, those were always grand." Their relationship was proof that love could transcend all barriers, matter, culture, and biology. They had become something new and wondrous, paving the way for others. The lunar diplomatic station, once a simple meeting point between species, had become the birthplace of a new era. And at the center of it were Ethan and Ariel, forever changed and forever bound by love. "What do we do now?" Ethan asked, though in their connected consciousness, he already knew the answer. Ariel smiled, her purple eyes now mirroring his. "We show others the way, together." Their story became legendary. the human soldier and the Vora warrior who dared to connect, facing death and transformation for love. As they stood together, looking out into space, their minds touched the infinite possibilities ahead. They had become more than either had ever dreamed, and their journey had only just begun. The connection had changed them, but it was love that had caused the greatest transformation.